thank you, yes. I wondered if it came with a gift certificate. We can always use a little tune-up every now and then. Anyhow, so I thought it would be, I'm an author, and writing has helped me transcend the limits of my own circumstances. Reading and writing have given me an imagination, a different way of looking at things, and so I've been playing on the word script here, given that I'm here with psychologists and based on what we're talking about and the fact that I'm a writer. But also those scripts that we are born with, the ones that are imposed upon us. So I wanted to kind of touch on that per se, and I didn't know how this panel was going to go, so I just prepared a little something, but it definitely will go off script because that's just how I roll. There's a script, we all know it. We inherit it before we speak, absorb it before we know how to question. The script tells us who we should be, what we should want, how we should act, who we should love, and how we should survive. But just because a script exists doesn't mean we have to follow it. We can flip the script entirely, rewrite the narrative, challenge the tropes, and become the author instead of a character in someone else's storyline. When I was a child, I found a book lying around the house, Adult Children of Alcoholics. I picked it up, curious. I read the first few pages, and they told me in no uncertain terms that I was doomed. That because of my upbringing, my environment, the dysfunction that shaped me, I would carry it with me forever. I would become it. I remember closing the book quickly, almost violently. I looked at myself in the mirror and said, no, that will not be my story. Even as a child, I knew the power of refusing a story that had been written for me. I didn't have the language yet, but I was already becoming an editor of my own design. Later in life, I would find words for what I was doing. Carl Jung would call it individuation. Michel Foucault might say I was rejecting the confessional apparatus, refusing to let dominant discourse define the limits of my identity. All I knew was that I was not going to play the part that pain had cast me in. I was a girl who wanted to be a boy. Not because I had some fully informed idea of gender, but because I knew something didn't fit. I tore off dresses and threw on a ball cap and jeans, not to cause a scene, but to feel like I could breathe. Wearing dresses made me a target by all the boys in the street. Every day was a fight. I didn't want to be a good girl, and I didn't know how to be a bad boy. But those were the two parts that I was told were offered. I wanted to be everything and nothing. I had just as much to learn as I did to unlearn, and I am still learning. It turns out it's possible, powerful, not to be either or. We're taught that identity is fixed, that who we are is a diagnosis or a data point. But identity, like healing, like truth, is fluid. It's not found in textbooks or test results. It's found in the messy, beautiful, terrifying act of becoming. I'm a survivor of clergy abuse and conversion therapy. I carry trauma in my body, in my voice, in the pauses between words. But I'm also an advocate, a walker of long roads, literal and figurative. A believer in the radical act of showing up. I've walked across Newfoundland and through rural Italy. I've spoken at the United Nations and in Vatican dicasteries. I've entered countries that do not recognize my gender, where my name and my presence were questioned before my voice could even be heard, putting myself at risk of being kidnapped and even beheaded. And still I entered. Foucault reminds us that power operates most insidiously, not through force, but through normalization, through the subtle training of bodies, the quiet silencing of dissent. I was trained to be silent. I was told to smile through pain, to forgive without justice, to fold myself into the shape of other people's comfort. But I refused. And I'm still refusing. Young spoke of the shadow, that part of ourselves we're taught to hide. But in my life, the shadow wasn't what was inside me. It was the institutions that tried to eclipse me. It was the church that covered abuse with ritual. It was the conversion therapist who called my queerness a sin. It was the silence that was mistaken for peace. The real work of healing is not erasing the past. It's learning how to live with it, to hold it gently, to walk with it, not as a burden, but as a companion. I don't pretend to be perfect. I made mistakes. I've faced all my fears now. I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm not afraid of a loss. What I am afraid of is not trying. Trying, to me, is an act of resistance. It's how we disrupt, resist, declare. I am still here, despite it all, and that's enough. To the students here, remember that the scripts handed to you by university, even your textbooks, learn from them, but don't be limited by them. To the clinicians and researchers, thank you for listening, for seeing the person beyond the pathology, for recognizing that sometimes the most vital data is the story someone cannot say out loud. And to anyone who has ever felt like they didn't belong in the story they were given, you don't have to. You can write a new one. You can tear the old pages out and begin again. There's no endpoint to my transition. No such thing as closure in my case against the church and the priest. Only movement. Movement through it and one day beyond it, towards something else. Something not yet named, but no longer defined by what I was told or what was done to me. We can't rewrite the dark chapters of our individual or collective history, but we can change how the story ends. Thank you.